I am your main man, and today I'm going to be joined by Matt Pritchard, my good buddy, and we're going to be talking. Before we actually start talking, let me plug away for him. Go help him achieve additional funding for his short film, Dearly Departed. They already made the goal in like 6 days, but you can still go and help and help make this a bigger deal, give them more money and get into more film festivals and so forth. It's, I think, at 114% now on the funding, and you can certainly help increase that and help make this project reach a larger spectrum. As you know, putting an actual film together, even a short film, is a costly endeavor for a large number of people. Help make this really reach out. It's wonderful for one of our own in the YouTube RPG community to be raised up into that ability to achieve this dream. So get out there, please demand your support to his which I know you're not using Kickstarter. What was it? Fund Yourself, right?
Yeah, it's called Seed and Spark is the platform we're using. It is a lot like Kickstarter, but better in many, many ways. Yeah, we raised 114% in the first like 6 or 7 days. So we are we're gonna make this movie, which is awesome. But any additional pennies will help us.
Yeah. So get in there, man. Even if you could just give the man $1 or $2, do it. Do it now. That'll definitely be very helpful to his cause. And we're going to be seeing and hearing more about this in the coming months right here on Your Main Man's channel. Now, besides that, you could also go check him out on T3H Sauce on YouTube. And you can subscribe to his channel and watch his videos. A lot of great reviews he does. There's some live plays of Within the Ring of Fire, which you can pick up on drivethrurpg.com, or hit me up, NWoD, on Facebook. Get the $75 deal on every PDF to ever come out. First 5 already out, or you can get the physical copies on drivethrurpg.com. Now, what we're going to talk about right now is a whole different type of role-playing game, if you will. My man Matt was talking to me in one of our chats at some point, and we said this might just be entertaining for you, the barbarian horde, to witness and sort of come inside to an inside conversation, put on the outside, like screaming in my backyard, baby. All the neighbors going to hear. So gather up, pull a seat up, and get yourself comfortable with your Cheetos and your sun-kissed soda, baby, because we're going to talk a shoot. Real feelings, not held back, put out there for you. Now, whether you love it or you like it, you better learn to live with it, because right now we're going to be talking to you as if you were just sitting there and anonymously, a fly on the wall, listening device hidden beside the television set, you understand. And we're going to be talking about some of our thoughts on corporate gaming, on the dangers it can pose to our hobby, as well as perhaps some possible benefits. And particularly, I think we were talking about Pathfinder, because that seemed to be the central nucleus of our private conversation with the both of us, as well as I think 1 or 2 other heads might have been bouncing in that chat room, you understand. So why don't we go ahead and start it off, Matt, with what do you think of corporate gaming in general, its effects on the RPG hobby as it stands in the year 2015, or perhaps even in the year 2525? I mean, who could know?
Oh, man. Okay, so a lot of these games like Pathfinder and D&D, maybe to a lesser extent with 5th edition. I'm not as familiar with that one. But they've basically turned into kind of these tactical tabletop combat games that are centered almost entirely on combat. And I know people are going to already be chiming in and say, oh, you can play it your own way. You can play it your own way. But the material itself lends itself to building hyper-powered characters in a super brittle rule set that if you create your character properly, you can, like, you know, lift planets and things like that. And that kind of power gaming, I think, is just complete nonsense. It throws out all the imagination and the fun that is role-playing, the kind of theater of the mind that I love and that I know you love.
Yeah, absolutely. Pathfinder to me, I think in particular, and I am gonna talk about Pathfinder. I'm gonna gag on Pathfinder. I'm gonna talk about Pathfinder's mom. I don't give a damn. But before we do that, I definitely want to say, there's a lot of other games out there that are make the same mistake. You talk about 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. One thing that I really hate, I'm going to see cast back over to you here in a minute, Matt. I hate particularly the nonsense, and corporate gaming. And White Wolf was good about not doing this so much, so I had to give them some respect on that line. But fantasy gaming should every bit be the bastion for role playing. It should be a higher end role playing than modern day. I've for decades been an advocate of the position that fantasy gaming is really where you should be able to achieve your absolute best gaming. Bam! I'm a god, I'm a devil, I'm a demon, I'm a nymph. I'm taking any sort of guise or mask that I want to. I'm pulling in strange aspects, bringing in perhaps hyper technology from the past, or bringing in spirits with grim tales of visions and reminders. I'm bringing in strange alien aspects that you didn't understand and digging into archaeological reminders of the past and strange relic formation. The possibilities can go on and on and on and on with a fantasy game. And it's about role playing. It's about the communication. It's about the ethereal mindscape, in which something within Ring of Fire I really tried to capture. And when I game, that's the way I try to game. And when I write, that's the aspect that I write towards. However, initially, when I put the game together, I'd attempted to do an idea whether I was going to run a system and sort of in a Delta Greed style, also release a D20 version. So I really became extraordinarily familiar with the D20 system. And at one point, I thought the D20 system was an engine that was able to empower you for an RPG potential. But from deconstructing it as a game designer to its basic points, the basic point of a D20 system is the 5-foot square. Boom, it's right there. And it de-emphasizes role-playing to a tremendous degree because it's built with bricks that are based on mechanical operation. It is not built on the ethereal strains of dream stuff, of that ether that we really want to bring in and to construct an actual role-playing game. To play it here, to engage the mind, to have it people just frothing their mouth to get it out. Boom, boom, boom. I'm gonna get in there. I'm gonna role play. And we can see this. This could be very clearly demonstrated. There are large numbers of this style of tabletop game. In fact, I think it's pretty hard to find your games, your Pathfinder type games, that have a connection to your deep immersive style. And if they do, they're probably not really following Pathfinder. And just like you said, you can't just hide behind an idea of a golden rule. You can't say, okay, well, here's a game that's not good, but if you rip all the mechanics out of it, maybe you can work around them enough until it's actually able to sustain a session of role playing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to also do with just the way that material is presented. I really don't like complicated rule systems. But I can at least imagine a role-playing product built from the ground up with a complicated rule system that if the material was written in a way that encouraged theater of the mind, that actually encouraged people to think about story first, I wouldn't hate that so much. But so many of these games, even when I looked over the free 5th edition D&D rule set, so much of like the character creation and everything like that was just talking about how to construct your statistics, what all the different bonuses and modifiers and different things that different races have. And that to me, like when you present that to a player, you're automatically putting them at a bad starting point. If they're not actually, like if you don't know what role playing is, you're just going to think about it in terms of what's on the piece of paper in front of you. And your character sheet, in my opinion, is like one of the least important things in a role-playing game. It obviously helps you when you need to make rolls and things like that, but the answer to any situation should never be on the piece of paper in front of you. And that's what people start thinking about with a lot of these games, you know, it's the answer is always on the paper. The answer is in the book, not in my mind, not in how my character would actually react in the situation. That really bothers me. And even White Wolf, to an extent, did that for a long time. I know you're not a huge fan of the New World of Darkness, but I certainly am. And their newest books, like the Vampire the Requiem 2nd edition, it's written with such an active voice that I can't see someone picking up that book and thinking about how to min-max a character. They would primarily, first and foremost, be thinking about how do I make a really cool predator, and how do I create a character, you know, with who is going to be able to deal with and have some sort of a moral compass in such a dark setting. And when you start from that point, and this is something I give you a huge amount of credit for within the Ring of Fire, everything in the Saga book and in all of the books within the Ring of Fire line are written in a way that everything is tied into story, and everything that you're reading is like, oh man, that would be so cool to have a character do this. Even like the disadvantages and the flaws, imperfections as they're called within the Ring of Fire, like they all give you starting points for ideas, really cool things that your character can do. My latest character in German George's game, Through Reason or Through Force, most of my character backstory came out of a couple of imperfections that I took. And it gave me a lot of, it put something at stake for my character immediately, like really, really big things at stake. And I think that a lot of these games, when you're building your character, if you're starting from the position of like, I want him to be able to do this, or I want him at some point to gain this advantage, this feat, or whatnot, so I need to make sure my prerequisites, it's like you're already failing at role playing. You've completely missed the point.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think we definitely talk about here in the terms of feat trees and creating these particularly prestige characters. Some of them prestige classes, for example, in Pathfinder, you have to plot out from the beginning. You have to do that, which destroys what you should be doing in the game. You should be, oh, all right, I learned this skill from the last 3 sessions, and now I've gained a level in your Pathfinder game, and now I'm going to apply that level, and I'm going to take skills that reflect what I've actually learned. And I've seen people that their power gaming mindset is so much you have to increase all of these stats. They're absolute, regardless of if you learned anything at all about stealth, you have to get better at stealth. You have to get better perception. So let's increase those. And yes, we learned a whole bunch about religion in the last 3 game sessions, tons. But I'm just going to keep my religion at 0, which makes no sense. Or sometimes, even worse, they'll go, oh, well, I learned that in the game. Can I have that for free? Yeah. Which I remember, in fact, they were the same guy with the 74 armor class, which was in Pathfinder. And I went berserk. I went berserk at the table on him and on the guys. Oh, well, I just learned that language for the game. Shouldn't I take? No, you have to spend points. That is what you get points for in a game, is to reflect what you actually have learned.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just you're arbitrarily getting this huge increase. There's no trade-off. And I mean, I would hate to bring the real world into a fantasy game, but there are trade-offs to everything.
What? Don't you remember back when it was D&D?
But you like there are trade-offs to everything. You don't get something for free. You know, it's like you can, if you're getting these points, you should be investing them in things that reflect what your character has accomplished. And I mean, if you're a good player and you do have certain goals that you want your character to do, you should be finding ways to role play those in the sessions that you're already having. Even if you're failing at things, like, you know, I want to increase my strength on my next level or something like that. If you're like a total weakling, you know, and even if you're failing at your feats of strength in any situation, that is how you build toward increasing those things. You know, you have to find a legitimate reason to do this. Otherwise, like, you're just, I mean, I'm trying to find like an analogy to this, but it's not like a comic book character, you know, because even comic book characters grow and tend to get new powers based on experiences they have in a story. They're not just inserted arbitrarily afterward. That really pisses me off. Like, I'm getting like actually angry right now that I know people do this.
Yeah, and it's encouraged in the game system. This is kind of one of those things people that talk about in Matt brought up right off the bat. Don't try to golden rule it and say, "Oh, you can make your entirely own system up," which is what when I was playing 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, which I did. I mean, I completely decimated the system. And Tim Harper, you can check out Sam Wise. I don't know, a fucking bunch of numbers. He's a fucking halfling anyway, but you can subscribe to his bitch ass. And I love Tim, but
great.
but he is a halfling, and he does have a bonus to throw rocks at you, so beware. Now, Tim kind of brought it to me a long time ago. He said, I don't think you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I went, no, I am playing it. Which is like the knee-jerk kick reaction a lot of dumbasses have, and I was a dumbass then. So then I really sort of examined that, though. Any sort of critique like that, I try to actually really think, and I go, okay. And from examining that and then for deconstructing the rules, it really dawned on me at that point, wow, we're doing a whole different thing here. And that's how we're getting role-playing, that's how we're getting immersion. Let's look at the other things that are still left, the vestigial aspects of Dungeons and Dragons that were left in my actual Dungeons and Dragons game, because it really didn't mirror D&D at all. And from looking at him, I said, okay, well, what if I pull these things out? What I did, it just got a lot better. So my love there isn't definitely what it would have been at one point, because, and a lot of people out there are going to go, and you're going to knee jerk. You're going to go, just like I did, because you bought into corporate branding. But corporate branding does not in any way create a better time at your table. In fact, anything, it's going to slide you into spending more money, whether you need to or not, to simply support their products that are coming out so that they can make more money off you. You do not need miniatures. You do not need battle cards. You do not need little rubber bands you put around your miniatures to indicate that miniature is puking, that miniature is paralyzed, that miniature just went to Chuck E. Cheese or whatever it is. And for God's sakes, you don't need dungeon tiles.
No,
dungeon tiles, first of all, you're not going to listen to my channel. You're going to listen to one of these complete fucking jabronis out there that play nothing but D&D and talk to their channels. Well, I get a lot of subscribers, but they're fucking jabronis. Right there off the bat, boom, you. Because you're not, and I say that not to be a dick, but to say that's not helping the hobby. That's hindering. What you need is to engage here. This is where role-playing takes place. If you cannot imagine what's before you, if you cannot describe what is before them, if you can't talk about, the mustial tomb, the bat guano, the spider webs, the dust, the strange scratching sound that's heard well off into the darkness, if you can't engage the temperature, if you can't talk about how it feels, that wall with a slight amount of some sort of moss-like substance as you run your hand across it, if you can't engage a cockroach skittering across their feet, or talk about how their heart is pounding heavier, or how their breath is coming shorter, how their hands become clammy. If you can't engage that as a game master, then you need to concentrate on engaging that as a game master. A condition card will not help you do that. A condition card does not engage here. A battle tile, or whatever the fuck you want to call this Rudy Poo Candy ass aspect, isn't going to help you here. It's putting something out here. You're playing out here. You're basically playing with toys. And that might be fun if you want to, play something that's like a Warhammer miniatures game or Battletech. But that's kind of what you're aping. You're doing a poor job at that, and a poorer job at engaging role-playing. Theater of the mind is role-playing. This other aspect is simply, how to put it, it's like a video game. If you play World of Warcraft, you're not playing a role-playing game. You might technically somehow, under the very verge of the word, fit the definition, because you have a character that's at work running around going, certainly, or whatever they do. I've never played an MMO. I don't know that much about them from the inside. From looking at them from the outside, I could certainly see it's something I would never want to do, because they group together everything that sucks about a role-playing, mindless, hack and slash, and so forth. And when you...
Yeah, and I have played a couple of MMOs, and they're not role playing at all. Even the ones that have like dedicated storylines, like the new Star Wars one, there's no matter how much story you try and keep into that, those things are single player games at that point anyway. But when you're playing those games, the goal is to level up. The goal is to get more shit and to get better powers. And what you're doing there is you're working out in a video game. And that drives me crazy. I don't like working out in real life. Why would I want to do that in not only in a video game, but in imagination? And that's what a lot of this, the kind of just hack and slash only style of play is. It's like, I don't want to just sit there and exercise for 4 hours with my friends. You know, that's not fun. But I also need to say, miniatures, they are awful. I completely agree. And we'll talk about that next. Condition cards, though, are different, in my opinion. They are not a miniature. It's an easy way to track an effect.
We're losing you, Matt. We're losing you.
You're not losing me. You're not losing me. You need to open your mind, all right?
You open a minute.
No, the condition cards are great because a lot of times it's like, okay, I'm going to use level 4 Protean or whatever it is. Let me just look up in the book what it does real quick. If you take the time to write down, like, okay, if I use dominate level 3 on someone, it causes this condition. You can just pull out the condition card and say, okay, now just look at this. These are the effects this is what you're affected by. And it just tells you basically like, okay, here's the exact statistical effect, role play that. It's an easy way to keep track of those conditions, but it's not like using a miniature. It's not like using a little figurine and moving it around on a tile and all this shit.
There with it, you just slide the paralyzed condition over it, or the nauseated right on.
This is going horribly awry.
Right on your miniature. That's right. So, I don't like any of these sort of additional things, but those sort of points. Well, those sort of points, I guess, are sort of what you'd use your game master screen for. But even then, we start getting into the aspect of overly complicated rules. Rules, there's no advantage to, and I think you may well agree with me, there's no advantage to rules that are anything beyond exactly the bare level of what you need to accurately, to a degree, because no rules simulate reality, regardless of how utterly complex they are. Rules do not ever need to be more complicated than they do to actually render a possibility for anything that you can encounter in an actual environment. That's what
and it's the more time that you're spending looking shit up in a book and trying to remember what does this actually accomplish, the less time you're actually enjoying using your imagination and having fun. And so that's actually what I think a condition card is. It's just an easier way to look shit up in the book.
It's a much card with this guy.
It's a much quicker way. All right, I've used them. I like them. They're good.
All right. So what about your stacks of dungeon tiles you have at home?
Oh, I don't have that shit, man.
So if you're at home right now, I'd like you to go ahead and start gathering together your bundles of sticks, because we're going to have a good old burn party here for our Ginger Avenger friend. So for me, when I saw that, I was confused for a minute, because back in I don't know when they first started coming out. I'm going to guess in the late 70s. I remember my mom loved to go to garage sales, all kinds of garage sales when I was a kid. So I'd see all kinds of different things. And I remember getting these like on more than one occasion. There would be like it would look like a book, but inside you would punch out and you could build like a little village with these little like very flimsy cardboard. You could build the houses and X, Y, and Z. And it was like a really shitty thing that looked very clearly in my mind like 70s-ish. And then I saw them bring them back in Dungeons and Dragons and slap like these ridiculous price tags on this stuff.
Yeah,
it was exactly what you get at the store today was exactly what they had in the 70s. They had the same thing. You put the little house together, you'd put a goddamn tree together, and all this sort of thing. And then I saw them. I've seen them in some of the videos out there, because I do watch videos on RPGs still, and I was flummoxed. I was like, "What is this bullshit?" And then people are like, "Oh, well, I have to get the little freaking extra chest, and I got to get this house, and I just spend this colossal amount of money when all you need to do is describe this stuff to the person.
I know, and this is the thing that so bothers me about that shit is when I see miniatures, all I'm seeing is the miniatures at that point. I can't that's broken my engagement in the game, and there's nothing that a miniature can convey to me that is anywhere near as cool as what is playing out in my mind. And I think a lot of people, like the way that it happens, at least for me, like when a game master or flame tender, storyteller, whatever you want to call it, is describing something to me, they're giving me these bits of information that they think are important. Like you're saying, it's like you're feeling the moss on the wall and you can see your breath because it's very cold and your heart is pounding. All these things, my mind takes that information and instantaneously fleshes it out and builds all sorts of extra cool shit on top of that. I can't do that when I see these like little plastic, stone walls and, oh, here's the little bridge that's over the stream and you have to go over the bridge and all this shit like that. Like it's boring, just absolutely colossally boring to me. And it hinders my ability to see something cool in my mind. And my mind is much cooler than any little plastic piece of shit that you're going to put on the table. Believe me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so are your players. Everybody else is doing the same thing in their mind. They're seeing something awesome and cool and something that they're going to remember. I don't want to remember my game, where I had this, my character had this epic death and he's, dying in the arms of his companions. I don't want to remember that as three little plastic figurines or pewter figurines, whatever it is, hunched around a little plastic or like a little tile that's like, this is the campfire, that just, it drives me absolutely insane when I see that shit.
Yeah. I can't abide that sort of thing myself either. It's kind of like a lot of these board games, like what is like Catapult or whatever these are, or you're get the gimmick and you're firing. They have all these little soldiers, just miniatures set up, and that's what you're playing. You have immediately downgraded your process. I'm sure we're gonna get comments, people going, "Oh no, it helps people to imagine." It doesn't. And here's the shoot on that. If you think that helps people imagine better, you don't have a good imagination, or you have not had the privilege of playing in what I would call a real role-playing game.
Yeah,
you have been pushed back, because what Matt and I experienced when we're playing, if you think that, because here's a litmus test. Matt and I can look at that and see it and play miniatures and understand that stuff. So we have seen both, and we can explain why one is way better than the other, and it's not everybody's fun the same. Which, God, please don't leave that comment. You can bitch about the other stuff, but all fun is not equal. It's not that your fun is worse than someone else's fun. What we're trying to hip you to is this is more fun. It's like riding the fucking merry-go-round at Busch Gardens or at your local Six Flags or whatever the hell you have, and then like going and getting on the giant badass roller coaster. It's way better. You're not comparable.
I agree, and I will say that like if you like playing a miniatures combat game or whatever, like Warhammer and all this stuff, that's fine, but don't call it role playing. That's not what it is. It's a completely different thing. I like board games. Like, don't get me wrong, I like card games too, but they are not the same thing as role playing games. And in my opinion, role playing is like it's my form of entertainment that I would choose over pretty much any other recreational activity.
Yeah, it's certainly the high point for recreational activity in my mind as well. For me, then you bring up the two different things. You got your tabletop miniatures games, which they're not really a board game.
No, they're like a board game. Like Warhammer it's very different. It's not a role playing game at all. Like you're controlling armies and things like that. And that's cool. And a lot of people they get a lot of fun out of it. That's an actual hobby for them, like painting their figurines and things.
Sure.
But they're also not using those to tell an individual story. They're playing it to be, okay, my, massive tank and robotic suit is killing your Tyranids and things like that. Like it's a war game. It is fundamentally different in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
You're not sitting there, describing the smell on the battlefield from the perspective of one person. You're playing a strategy game.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a very different thing. I mean, something like that obviously has more akin to say Risk than it does to a role playing game.
Yeah.
But you also see, the the real board game aspect. A lot of people they call it a tabletop miniature deal, but a lot of these games are more like a game like Descent or Talisman. That's sort of, they have de-evolved into that. To me, those are like versions of a role playing game that you play with like a child to start getting them hooked. Otherwise, I don't see why. To me, those games don't have any proper use at all, because you could just play a role playing game and get the full experience. So, sort of what we're talking about here, people. And if you don't really understand what deep immersive role playing games are, it's about getting into the mind. It's sort of like a method acting aspect to role playing. Like you're your character here. You're looking at your character's eyes. It's like weaving a paper mache mask out of the ephemeral gossamer of the minds in that collective space that we call a gaming table, a gaming area, what have you, and then looking out through that and seeing what's in the game master's mind, what's in the other player's mind, and to engage that, to see this individual as an ogre or as an orc or what have you, to see what's happening, to feel the chill of the Niflheim wind on your face, to feel the hot sun beating down or whatever it is. And to be there, to be as close to there as you can for as long as you can in the game. That's really the whole deal, because that's that rush. It's going to give you that aspect, where you can become, you get yourself sad or happy, adrenaline. You're sitting there frothing.
Scared.
One of the worst things you could see is dull combat, which to me is, anyone who watches the video I'm playing, you can see that I do not do dull combat. I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna get in that ass, and we're gonna describe it. We're gonna get in there, and we're gonna make it visceral and real. We're gonna get the smells of the utter horror of combat. Not I swing, I miss, take 8 damage, whatever. That's, oh my god, you see it so much. I mean, you can see it right here on YouTube. Go type in D&D, Pathfinder, live plays, whatever. You can see it, dude. And you can type in the ones that we've been in, and you can see it's a whole different world.
Yeah, and that's the type of thing. It's like, even if you think about it from the perspective of like movies and people always try and talk about like cinematic combat and things like that. The cinematic aspect of it is what's happening in your head and the way you're describing things. Like Indiana Jones never took, 8 damage and then kept going. He was, holding on to that truck, climbing back up, shooting that Nazi in the face, doing all this stuff, and he was getting hurt. He was feeling pain. It was none of this like, oh, okay, all right, I take 6 damage. I'm gonna keep going though. I'm not hitting any penalties yet. I'm just gonna keep rolling. You have to sell that. And you look at Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones movies. He was selling every bit of those fights, every bit of that action. And if you want to have what I would consider the best kind of fun in a role-playing game, you got to do that. You have to sell it. You have to like, I don't understand this shit where people, don't talk in character very much, or don't try to, portray anything that's happening to their character. It's absolutely terrible. It drives me insane, because this is playing pretend on steroids. Like, I get the fun comes out of playing pretend. And if you're not even willing to do that, I feel kind of weird doing that, you're playing the wrong fucking game. Like, stop doing that and just do something else. Stop fucking up my hobby.
Absolutely. One thing I really saw between, particularly because there became a huge difference in mechanical interface between Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and 3rd edition. Now, 3rd edition did some great things. It greatly clarified an incredibly poorly. The AD&D system is unbelievably poorly written. It's
really bad.
It's like a giant clusterfuck. And almost every way you could conceive of a system being poorly written, it is. Now, obviously,
I role played in spite of only having AD&D 2nd edition at hand. I not because I had D&D. I played in spite of the fact that I had that. Those rules were terrible.
The rules are terrible, but I will say this for AD&D, I still think it stands as the best actual bit of role playing that's presented anywhere in any Dungeons and Dragons book, and as well as Pathfinder. The beginning intro to how to play role playing games in AD&D 2nd edition. I remember getting that book and reading it, where they talk about the weirats in the sewer. I really liked that myself, and it has a lot of like bits to role play. Like, okay, you have your Hierophant druids, and now you have your paladins have these restrictions and that. And yeah, there were a lot of problems because of that, but and the rules are just a chaotic mess. They're undefendable. Please don't try to defend it. They're horrible and they're undefendable. I know them inside and out. I used to literally know every rule for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, all of them. Yes, the weird little ones in the blue box text, I knew them all. I could tell you the damage, large or small. I could tell you the speed factor of every weapon, not just in the player's handbook, but in every one of their splat books. I knew, outside of knowing all the spells, I knew everything. And that book had weird, obscure rules, and always in D&D with the fucking drowning rules or the dehydration rules. I don't know why they made that stuff so hard. It shouldn't have been. You had multiple systems stacked on top of each other. It's like, let's use a whole different role-playing game system for thieves' abilities instead of rolling the D20, which a D percentile 100 and a D20 do basically the same thing, except you have that slight increase possibility. You don't have to have by fives, but it was just an abysmal system. I taught literally hundreds of people how to play Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition. It was none of them ever got it intuitively. I see people that have been playing it for a long time making vast and huge mistakes. So the clarification of rules was wonderful when 3rd Edition came out. However, they gutted out all these good things, and there was good common sense role playing stuff like don't do that, in that pedantic Gary Gygax voice. But in 3rd Edition, when I saw it, I almost never played 3rd Edition because in the character boxes where they start talking about your barbarians, which we all know which class I read first. I flipped it open. I said, "Whoa, they have barbarians right in the base book. Wonderful. Oh, half orcs, wonderful. Okay, that's what I'm doing." And then I read it, and it talked about what stats I needed to put where, and I went, and it was my friend Joe Hoff's book. It almost got thrown across the room. Like, the hell? You're teaching people how to power game, right? Not like hidden somewhere, right out in the open, in a fucking thoroughfare of the book. Here's how you better have a high con and strength because that's important. Fuck your charisma. It baffled me that they would be that ignorant, that the people that put it together would be that shitty of players. Fuck you guys for doing that. How about that? I took that as an affront. It was very offensive to me. And in Pathfinder, you're going to find that to an incredibly greater degree. You're not playing fantasy characters anymore. By the time you're 2nd level, you're goddamn Superman in fucking chainmail. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. You wouldn't be in chainmail because you're going to be in full plate, right? Because fuck chainmail, right?
Full magical plate, by the way.
Well, yeah, maybe he's not magical by 2nd level, but they probably let you slide with that plate mail. Oh, terrible.
Plate mail's fucking stupid anyway. I would never choose that. It's totally impractical for any situation. You're not just going to walk around adventuring in armor. That's insane. Nobody has any idea how uncomfortable that would be to wear that all the time. And combat, unless you're going to war, you're never going to know when combat is right around the corner. By the time you get your fucking armor on, the orcs are burning down your building and feasting on your loved ones.
No, you're wrong. You should have your plate mail on all day, and you should sleep in it, and you should be able to swim in it. Regardless of what is going on.
If for some reason you're not in that, you should have some sort of ability to put it on really fast.
No, I'm always in it. I don't take it off. I'll never take my plate off.
It's just a part of you at that point. It's just grafted to your skin,
And I run constantly. I never stop. I run in full plate. I got this giant helmet on, and then what else? I put 8 more suits of plate mail on top of that.
Your body works at 100% efficiency, so you never have to pee or poo or anything. You can just you just eat and you absorb it, and you have that power.
Right. I'm like all my characters like that. What is that? What's the name of that creature from the Book of the Weaver? The Weaver's version of Gorgons or Fomori?
I'm not familiar.
they don't do that, which I thought was interesting. An interesting added detail there. That's what I really loved about the old World of Darkness stuff. It had lots of wonderful, engaging details like that. Of course, it had maybe the worst system I've ever seen for a role playing game. And I'm going to do a whole video on that, but it's unforgivably bad. And people go, "Oh, it's an easy system everyone knows." All right, let's assemble 5 people and let's do combat with it. Oh no, you can do this and this and this, and look here, this book says this and this. And it becomes a massive clusterfuck with soak rolls. That's right. Soak rolls. The rolls that keep the game from ever ending.
Well, then you add multiple actions into that. then you'll never get through a fight.
Oh yeah. Well, it depends. It depends with multiple actions. They can make it long, or it just depends. I found
I'm talking. You do multiple actions. You're rolling for attack. Someone's rolling dodge. You're rolling for damage. They're rolling soak, and then you're doing it again for your next action the entire fucking time. It's horrendous, and especially like that was something I played a game of Vampire the Masquerade for a long time in high school. Our characters got like retardedly powerful. We were ready for Gehenna to come at that point. Well, maybe we still would have been wiped out, but we had this one fight in particular that I remember that it was the whole session was one fight, and since everybody had celerity, and I think there were werewolves burning rage as well, the fight literally would have been over in about 10 seconds if you were tracking it in real time. It would have just been this blur, and then blood is everywhere, and a few people walk away from it. But it took 4.5 hours to do one fucking fight. One fight. That's insane.
And that's with you running with a group that had coherent rules. Not this person trying to bring in something from adventure, this person trying to bring in something from the White Wolf Book of Combat, this person trying to bring in that, and it just gets
people who know the rules too. Like, you're not having to clarify things for people. It's like we all knew the rules. Everybody knew what was happening, and we were going as fast as we could, and it was still ridiculous.
Yeah, it's an unforgivably bad system in terms of dice rolling. I know we're probably getting hit just for saying that, but
I mean, the thing is, like, I see your critique and I completely agree, but at the same time, I still love playing that. I like that. Yeah,
I'm not saying I wouldn't, but at the same time, man, it's bad. So there you go. So those of you that are looking out there with the D&D Pathfinder out and just gagging on that, talking about Pathfinder Mama, but we're going to talk some more about Pathfinder. And I think that's the absolutely most unforgivable thing is the whole hex grid culture. The worst thing I ever saw are these little, like, you actually make in a town, and then you have to buy like this type of bed or this type of chest and then this type of chest. You have to buy this stack of tiles to get this little thing or that little thing. Or you buy like a random miniature in a box and you got to pay like $20 per, and you're buying armies of these miniatures like you're going to go out and play Warhammer. And you don't need any of that. If you do, I would suggest go play Warhammer, because that might be what you're looking for out of an experience of gaming. You can talk to people you don't need to play in character, but the amount of time it takes to set up a battle, I'm well done with that battle before you've set it up. But it's been described, it's been narrated, it's been entered into, it's been cinematic, and I see people playing those games. And they aren't entertained by that. They're kind of like, maybe they look and go, oh, okay. And they're looking like over things. So it's like they have this eagle eye.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I hate that. And there's a YouTube channel I follow called NWoD. They do it's a lot of video game stuff, but they also do others. And they recently started playing Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And they're funny guys. Like, it's an entertaining watch, but I was watching it going like, oh my God, like I would hate to be at this table. Like, because they had the whole town set up, and then the guy set up basically what was the dungeon. Like, they're inside this house, and he set up all these plastic walls, all these little props and things like that. And he has pieces of paper covering the pieces, the places that they haven't seen yet. So it's like they can't see ahead into this door, so they don't know what's behind it. You know what you could do instead of wasting 2 hours setting all this shit up is you could just describe the hallway that the people are in, and then when they open the door, tell them, the air that wafts out, the smells first, and then you can, the sounds that are coming from it. Is there a fire stoked? Is there orange light glinting off of the ceiling? Describe that room to them. Give them that a little bit of inspiration and let their brain fill in the details instead of having them go, okay, remove the piece of paper. Okay, I'm looking around. I see a bunch of people in there. Okay, I'm going to move my miniature up now. Like that drives me absolutely bonkers.
Don't forget to search every 5 foot square.
Oh, that's true. That's true. you have to do that.
Got it.
Oh God, here's a story though. I remember it was free RPG day or whatever that happens every year. Yeah. that was the day that 4th edition had come out. And I went to this comic shop, and I didn't know it was that day. I went in, but they were playtesting 4th edition D&D. And
Sure.
everyone there hated it immediately because the guy's going through the rules, and he's telling me, he's like, so this ability allows you to move 3 squares. He's like, what the fuck is a square? What does that even mean in game terms? And I know someone's going to go, oh, a square is 4 feet or you know, whatever. But like, why are you even thinking in those terms? Like, is it close enough that I can run up to the guy? Just that's all you need to know. Let your mind fill in the details. You don't need this stupid mat that is telling you in precise detail exactly how many feet you're going to move up. You know, and you can only move in those foot increments. You know, I can't move half a square. What if I only want to move half a square? What are you going to do about that?
Yeah, one of the worst deals ever with the squares is you and I can be. Let's say we got a bunch of we were walking around with swords, right? We're in your town, we're in New York City, and all of a sudden orcs attack us. As if they want to attack us somehow for some reason, and you're standing in a 5x5 in front of me. I'm standing in a 5x5 behind you. But let's say I want to come into your square, start attacking, and boy, they get some. Oh boy, their rules get dynamite complicated, extraordinarily confusing. You have to do that. You can't in here. You can't in there. I can guarantee you can make a 5x5 room, and we could stand in it and do all kinds of stuff without having a problem. Now, I remember doing this scene in Conan, which is D20, and again, just let us do it because it made all kinds of sense. Because instead of describing, we just did it. I stood the one guy up physically. I got it behind him. I had my 2 swords, and he was just enormous fucking juggernaut of a dude. And I'm going like 5'10", 5'11", and I got these. I had 2 short swords as my weapons, not 2 butt ass long swords or scimitars, but they were 2 short swords. And I get up beside him, and I stick my hands out. My arms a lot longer than his body. Right at the other creatures are all up on him, or there's just people actually just going in. And I just, and I got on that ass, and they were like, "Oh, yeah," it made sense. It makes perfect sense. And in saying that sort of thing, I mean, I think it just destroys the thing. Here's the litmus test for you people if you're home. I'm gonna come back to one other thing you said too, but in terms of space in it, don't look at nonsense like, oh well, he ran up but he's 5 foot in front of him now. No. Think of how would it play out if you're watching Game of Thrones, you're watching Conan the Barbarian, if you're watching something like that. Does he get there? Is he the big fat slow one? Maybe the fat slow one doesn't get there. The other guy probably does, and particularly if it's just a little difference. It's like, he's 30 feet away from you. Okay, he can get there. He's 40 feet away from you. Sure, why not? It's not going to adversely negatively impact the game experience. However, we can all go 30 feet. You're modified by armor. If you're a barbarian, you get +10, or if you're a monk, you might get a +10 or 20. That stuff is really bad, first of all, because people don't move at the same speed at all. People can run really far distances. Some people are great at accelerating. All of these things need to be taken into account when you're actually trying to get your believability in there in terms of making a system that correctly functions. So if you have a more complicated system and it clearly doesn't replicate real life, there's no use to it. When you can use a system that's less rules impacting than that. I think that's definitely something important towards.
Particularly egregious example of that is there's a system. This is one I have not played, but I've heard every single person I've talked to who's played this game has said it's an enormous amount of trouble. It's called Hero, and it's basically meant to be this totally general system. So you can use it to do any kind of game.
Hero.
Not really. I mean, they're still selling it. But I think it's been around for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's like a superhero game is what we're talking about, right?
It can be, but it's a general system. No, it's not like Masterminds or anything, but it's a
lot older than that.
Like, it's a huge book. It's so thick, and it's basically just rules. And this guy I know, Brian Kaplan, he's an economist and a New York Times best-selling author. You should definitely read his books. He used to try to run these games with his econ students, his PhD econ candidates. These nerds would come and play, and like, these guys are all into really, really advanced mathematics and econometric modeling, and none of them were able to get a good enough handle on the system to have a game that was playable. So he went back to something that was like True 20, or he made a homebrew D20 system that apparently works much, much better. But it was like, if you can't get like the smartest percentile of people, in sciences and whatnot on board with just mechanically how to play your game, don't fucking use that system. Like that's garbage. It's trash. And like I said, that's a particularly bad example of game design, but a lot of that can be seen in games like Pathfinder or others that have just rules upon rules for shit that you don't need to model. You do not need to model a lot of the things in game,
Well, here's the key, and this is what I did when I'm building within the Ring of Fire and for the air system. The vast majority of these non-essential elements to randomize. If you don't need to randomize an element, such as to attack someone, what you can really do is leave it into a narrative aspect that sort of piggybacks off of another roll. And that will work perfectly. You'll reduce your rolling, which reduces out-of-game impact. And you don't want to out-of-game impact your players. You want to, in-game, you just want to corral them and keep them in-game as much as possible, keep them here as much as possible. And let's talk a little bit about power gaming, because I think anyone out there, regardless of how much you love Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition or how much you love Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition or Pathfinder or what have you, you can't deny that the game is built to power game. In fact, as we said right there, it'll tell you what stats you need for your character to be good. It'll tell you that. So that's going to right off the bat defeat any sort of argument you're going to have against power gaming. And then they're going to list examples. Oh, you should take this feat or that feat or this feat or that feat. And hell, you could even go online and pull down a character build and operate that. That I couldn't believe that one. I was like, that it took a while to convince me that was a real thing, and that disgusts me. And if you're playing characters like that,
yeah, and I also I don't like. I really prefer kind of point buy systems for character creation, just because it gives you freedom. Like I try and come up with kind of the basic idea of who my character is first, like you're kind of supposed to if you're role playing, and then base my stats off of that, and base my my skills off of that. I don't like anything that's going to tell me, these are the prerequisites you need to consider yourself a warrior. Like fuck that. What if I want to be, a completely, someone who wants to be a warrior, who's totally inept at it though, who's kind of an underdog, who doesn't have the requisite skills to be a knight, but somehow he's managed it, and maybe people think he's kind of a joke. That's a fun character to play, Well,
absolutely, I agree.
And that's the other thing with that kind of a thing where you have to come up with a build to get where you're going. Like that doesn't allow you any freedom to play against type. And I love playing against type. Playing against type is awesome.
Yeah, I remember well back in the early annals of YouTube when I first started, you could find videos of me like talking about that, and some of these knuckleheads talking about, oh well, no, you shouldn't play a dwarf sorcerer because you get this. I'm like, dude, that's exactly why I want to play it.
Because it's fun, it's interesting,
and almost no one's made it. I don't want to be, oh, remember when that guy was what did you play again? That's how you failed. If you play a year-long saga or story with somebody, they don't even know what the fuck you were doing. And because I always get on the other end, man, remember when you played that dwarven sorcerer and you did this and you never had no magic missile and you just were doing all this type of deal? I'm like, yeah, that was cool. I'm like, what was you doing in that game again? The guy's like, I don't know either. But I remember your character because you had all these cool, interesting, interactive scenes. That's what you need to play for. Play for the scenes. Play for the memories, because that shit's real. That's the real shit. Yeah. You don't get to take the gold home. You don't get to take the +7 scimitar home. You do get to take the memories home. You do get to take that time when everyone's like, yeah, that was awesome. And when it's just knocking hit points down or whatever, and then one person's over here munching Cheetos, don't know what the fuck is even happening, that can be a real issue. And it's fine to do that to get involved. Like if you ain't in a scene, you don't need to pay attention. Because I certainly don't, because I don't want to know what other people did if I didn't know about it. Because 15 sessions later, I might forget I wasn't there, because it all blend together. But if in the middle of, you're supposed to be doing things, if you're not engaged, that can be a real issue.
That was actually something again, playing kind of against type, that can be really fun. And something I really do like about using dice for adding a bit of randomness is that you can have someone who is horribly incompetent at combat who gets some incredible rolls, and everybody thinks they're a badass all of a sudden.
Hell yeah.
Perfect example was in our game of Within the Ring of Fire, Hell and Back. Your character, Yavash Taka, had no combat abilities at all. He had zero. He had zero grades in any combat ability, but everybody thought that he was this like fearsome, badass warrior because he got a couple of really high rolls and killed a couple of extras in really cinematic ways, and everybody was afraid of him. And he was the fucking wizard. He was the goddamn wizard, and everybody thought he was like some sort of like, predatory, martial arts master, and he wasn't.
That's right. A couple well-placed roles could definitely do that. People, and of course you have players that are selling, but obviously they don't know what's on my sheet. And I always strongly encourage you never tell anyone anything at all about your character outside of what they can physically see from looking at you. You can see Nihon Gi. You could see, I had tattoos. I had the flame red hair, or the blood red hair, I should say. And you can see those things. I'll let you in on that. But I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to discuss my advantages and my skills with you. And that can go for absolutely any game. And I would always encourage people to do that. And you get into that mentality, like in a Pathfinder game. Again, this is another thing I hate. And I never saw this until I was completely clueless that this is even a thing until I got on YouTube, because I'd never seen anyone play like this. I'm playing a fighter, you're playing a rogue, you're playing a wizard, you have to play a cleric, heal bot. I've never seen that before. And that just strips everything away, because first of all, we all know exactly what our roles is. So that means I can go from the A to the Z what you can do. And let's face it, if we're playing like that, you probably made something that's pretty shitty and generic. So all the more so, oh, look, he's a fighter with a long sword, a shield, and plate mail. I haven't seen that before.
I think it's important to make a distinction when you're talking about power gaming. That doesn't necessarily mean that like your characters can't be absurdly powerful, because there are certain games, like Exalted is a great example, where you're playing demigods. The point is that you're playing these like hyper badass people, but if the material is supporting that, then that's fine. It's when you're trying to break the system, when you're trying to exploit little loopholes in the rules, to get these stupid bonuses for your character. So you can, I don't even know if it's stealing the spotlight, just so you can always be at max HP and just, completely fuck everyone else up and come out, with no consequences to your actions whatsoever. It's not necessarily the power level that you're playing at. It's how you are trying. If you are trying to game the system, then that's what I consider power gaming.
Well, here's the real litmus test for that. All right. Dungeons & Dragons. Pathfinder isn't a game. It's for anyone out there that's confused, but it's not a game. It's just it's not a game.
You heard it here. Pathfinder is not a game.
Pathfinder is not a game. It's Dungeons & Dragons variant. If you wrote Pathfinder and turned it in, for a final project in your creative writing class, you would get an F for plagiarism, and you would get thrown out of university. All right. So it's not a game in itself. It's just a variant rule system. It's just like Castles and Crusades and all these other Dungeons & Dragons variant rule systems. They're
Crusades. Oh my god!
I think that's the name of it. I don't fucking know, man. All these OSR games. I mean, they're all old school clones. Pathfinder's old school clone in D&D 3.5. They're on 5th edition now. So, but Pathfinder and Dungeons & Dragons, they are supposed to be fucking Lord of the Rings. That's what Dungeons & Dragons is. It's the party Gandalf put together. Gandalf's not one of the players. Gandalf is the quest giver. And you have a halfling and some dwarves and fucking elves or whatever. And these Rudy Poos are running around doing their deal. And they have classes and they have, their own little stories and different looks and so forth. But they're kind of on the same power level, and different things. And then it's like, okay, so imagine we get a whole bunch of people together. We're going to play D&D. Or especially Pathfinder, and everyone's made, we got the dwarves, the elves, the human ranger, we got the halfling burglar, and then Superman shows up. And we all turn and like, well, that's Superman. It's like, yes, I'm Superman. I'm like, you are more powerful than all of us together, plus all of us together, and then more. And that's the kind of deal, that that you can get in some of these games. You know, you can really, once you get a couple levels and keep stacking, you can get your characters outrageously potent versus, you know, someone that's conceptually driven, and that creates a whirlwind of problems. If mechanically I can do nothing beside this amazing badass, and then if you as a game master feature Mr. Badass, all of a sudden me as a player, not me per se, but a lot of almost anyone that plays, 99.9% of players are gonna go, well, fuck this, I gotta fuck my concept. I gotta build towards being a badass so I can compete. So I can compete for spotlight, so I can compete for game time, so I can compete for magic items, because this guy's like, well, the best magic items, I will take all of those. What are you gonna do? You won't stop me. I got heat vision, motherfucker. You're like, oh god, I'm a purple gnome. I can't compete with heat vision, you know. So for me, you know, that comes to another issue. Also, what you said before, I wanted to talk about that. Here's the deal, people. Don't buy your miniatures. Spend 15 minutes, and this won't even take 15 minutes, but you got 5 senses. Write all 5 senses down, and beside each one of them, write 5 details for your location. You know, engage each sense at least 5 times. Give 5 visuals, 5 that are tactile, 5 that they can taste, 5 that they're going to see or hear or smell. And once you've done that, that's wonderful. And you don't just throw them all off and just read off a list, but you know, you throw one in here, one in here, one in here, and you're keeping them engaged. That smell of pine, you know, describing, you know, the roughness of the bark, maybe taking their senses away with darkness at some point. You know, the cockroach that runs over their foot, whatever. All those things are going to bring the player in and keep them there. You know, and you keep doing it, you keep them there, and that gives you 25 details to work off, and you might not even burn through all of them. If you don't, well, you could just throw one of them off and use it later, and you could certainly re-engage them. There's no reason, you know, you can't. Oh, a cockroach runs across your foot. You see a moth fluttering near your torchlight, or smacks right into your face. You know, and it's fluttering and flying around, and just sort of tweak those details right on the fly, and that I will guarantee you, bring the best dungeon master in the world with every single dungeon tile ever imagined, with every single miniature ever imagined. Put his ass there and give me 4 hours and put him and me in a game, and let's see which one you guys want to fucking, who you want to play with.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the real litmus test. And if you're like, well, I want to play with this Rudy Pucani, that's jabroni. Not question you, but in all seriousness, that's the real litmus test to what is better, what is more fun. It's not whose fun is wrong; it's what is more fun. That's the deal. Whose group would you want to be in? You know,
and I would have to say that not like I do draw kind of a hard line, and it's kind of arbitrary for me where I draw it, but it shifts. But there is definitely a wrong way to play role-playing games.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a wrong way to do it, and not all fun is created equal. I don't believe that shit. You're not all special snowflakes. Some people are really bad at playing these games, and if you don't want to play them in a way that, you know, engages your senses and engages your memory and engages the creative parts of your brain, and you want little pieces of plastic to do it for you, then you are just a straight up jabroni. There's no way getting around it. Like, you're wrong. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing at myself as I'm changing location, but I definitely agree with that. There's a way to do it. Which I definitely within Ring of Fire put together, you know, just how you do that, how you handle it, how you put together an actual role-playing game. What is better? What's a better way to go about things? And that's, to me, very important. And a big part of the reason I have a problem with these sort of games is because, you know, you can get them everywhere, and that's what a lot of people are going to get for their first experience. Quite frankly, they're going to be trained wrong by people that are either incompetent. Set this down because it's making a lot. By people that are either incompetent or are simply trying to steal your money. these these people realize you don't need battle masters.
Why not both?
And it could well be, but I think of these people, if at least I'm hoping they're competent enough at role playing to get out there and build a game that that wouldn't require a reliance on these things. The other really weird thing is it's a terrible place to start. It's way harder to learn to play a Pathfinder game. It's way harder. Bring a brand new player in there.
Yeah.
Grab Within the Ring of Fire or any of the other rules light sort of games that focus on actual role playing. I perhaps think that Within the Ring of Fire is the best example of this, but there are a number of others that are very good at this as well. But fuck them, because that's not my deal. But let's say, so we put that and we put out like a Pathfinder there, and you're teaching someone new, and it takes an astronomical amount of time, and then they start making a character. Well, there's only so much time any particular player is going to put into making a character. So instead of reading about their divinity, instead of reading about the sacrifices and reading about the area they're playing in, learning about the culture of their species, they need to learn about how to operate their character mechanically, how to attack things, how to defend, what armor is better, what aspect of the character is better in terms of picking up feats and so forth. For me, I've had a multiple game masters, over the years, look at my final character and stop and look at me with this not I don't mean this to be but the patronizing look, like, oh, you don't know how to play, or you're too stupid to make a character. I'm going to help you. Oh, you made a thief in your worst status dex, and you have this really high intelligence or wisdom even, which is even less useful. And then they go through this whole thing, and I see it as soon as they start talking. I see what they're doing, and I go, no, and I lean in. I'm making a character I'm going to role play, and my condescension towards them in reverse is far more dickish than theirs, because they clearly don't understand what you're there to do.
I actually have a perfect example of what you're talking about. So I had a bunch of friends. My group of friends that I game with in real life had never role played before. A couple of them had played like one session of D&D before, and I made the mistake of starting us with Exalted 2nd Edition, which is like the mechanics on it are it's the base system is the White Wolf system with dots and 10-sided dice, and we had an enormous amount of fun with that, and we were going to pick that game up again as soon as the 3rd edition comes out with the rules revisions. But they, like I said, they had a lot of fun, and they were actually intuitively very good players. But there was a huge, huge difference from when we went from that setting and that system that has such a kind of Byzantine rule system. The next game we played after that was Stalker, which is no dice, and it's almost entirely theater of the mind. And their role play, in terms of its quality, skyrocketed immediately. And they all kind of figured their character choices were completely different. They came up with like awesome stories for them. But it really was getting rid of all of these mechanical requirements freed them up. And it wasn't something that I didn't set out. I didn't tell them, try and make an interesting character or whatever. Like they made them. Like they made really flawed, awesome characters. Like one of my friends made this guy that was just like, complete social disaster. Like he's always tracking mud in and all this stuff. Just a complete lout that you would never want to be with. But one of the other players who had just been playing this like super badass like barbarian warrior priest in Exalted. Mm-hmm. She came up with such a fucking good idea for her character. It was amazing. Within the setting of the Stalker, there's like these zones that are all messed up. For those of you who've never heard of it, where like physics are all screwed up. There are these kind of disasters. People who survived the kind of event that came out were permanently kind of tainted and altered. So her husband was a survivor of one of these things, and she kind of kept that under wraps for a long, long time. And she came into this game pregnant. So her character was pregnant with this baby that she knew was basically going to turn into a mutant. And so her reason for going into these zones, which is usually to go and rob graves and get treasure and all this stuff, her reason was to see if there was some way that she could prevent her child from turning into a fucking freak. And she kept that a secret from everybody. I was the only person in the game who knew that her character was pregnant. And it was fucking brilliant. When she came to me with that, I was like, that is awesome. And it was simply because all you have on that sheet is you just write down a couple of skills, like 10 skills, like, oh, I went to college, so I have a PhD, or, I have some survival skills. Like I can do camping and that kind of stuff. Like when they didn't have to concern themselves with that, their creativity just immediately flourished. It was awesome. And it was such a cool game that we were playing. And we'll definitely have to play Stalker again soon. But yeah, it's getting all the bookkeeping out of the way, and getting like trying to remember what does this feat do? What does this charm do? Getting all of that out of there gives them all this, it frees up all this misdirected energy and puts it right back into where it's supposed to be, in using your imagination.
That's right. I mean, that's it. People will only spend so much time making their character, and I want them, I want them to have a character that, while I like, we've talked about this before, I don't think Stalker is like a go-to. I think it's what I call a palate cleanser.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, it's not the game you want to play over and over and over again. It's the game you play here and there. I find like Call of Cthulhu sort of the same way. Like it's great to do some Call of Cthulhu. I love Call of Cthulhu, but it wouldn't be the go-to game, because I think it would become very hackney after a while,
Yeah.
But when you,
it's also difficult with Stalker, since it's a diceless system. It's kind of difficult to adjudicate things that, like, dice really do serve a purpose, and that's something that game really taught me. Dice can add to the drama, because throwing in that randomness where you can get some absurd success or a critical failure at any moment, it really adds this kind of spice to the game that you couldn't have come up with on your own. And that is a criticism I have of Stalker, is that it does take away a little bit of that random magic of role-playing games. But yeah, it's definitely a palate cleanser. It's not something I would run for a long time, and I don't think it's meant to, because it's such a lethal game anyway. Your character's someone who survives multiple trips into the zone. Like that's a feat in itself.
You go over
they want to go back,
T3H sauce, and you can see the Stalker game that our buddy George and myself played in, and you could definitely see the extreme level of lethality in that game for sure.
It was total session length. Yeah. They got about 100 yards into the zone before they died. But yeah, people only have so much attention that they can pay to rules and minutia, and they've only got so much attention that they can use on their creative aspects. Like you can't, if you're trying to think of the effects of what your spell is going to do constantly, it gets in the way of actually trying to describe how you're going to go about casting this spell. How are people going to react to what's going on in front of you? There's trade-offs to everything. Like I've said earlier, not just with point building and all this shit with experience points, but there's trade-offs to what you can accomplish as a player within the system that you're playing within.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to get the most you can out of your game time, and that's really kind of we're coming across here. I'm sure some people go, "Oh yeah, you're being dicks," and maybe we are, but it's out of our love. So we both love this hobby, and it's about that love and seeing the enemies of the hobby, the individuals that are simply doing this all out of greed, that are, I guess you would say, your false prophets, bringing you a message so they can capitalize on your wallet instead of capitalizing to make your game the best it is. That was a thorough goal that I had when I put together a game. I wanted people to play that and being like, yeah, that's the high point. That's the Cadillac of your RPG experience. That's the Lamborghini at your table. It's not the I guess we could do this, and oh, you're an elf and we met in a bar and let's go get some treasure. It's about telling these sagas of a tremendously interesting aspect to your game. And when you have a game that promotes power gaming over role playing, like he said, he used those times to really make some great stuff. And when instead you're trying to power game instead, you're going to create an experience that is quite simply substantially less. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I completely agree. And I mean, kind of bouncing off of this, there's a YouTuber, his name is, I think his channel is WASD20. His name's Nate. Really good channel, which, by the way, everybody should subscribe to. He actually described a situation recently, maybe within the last month or two, where he was trying to play Pathfinder with like his wife and some friends, and they were like kind of into it, but he kind of started getting the feeling that they wanted to play other games. They're like, hey, we could play this board game instead. And like what I commented on that video is that, at least I think I did, I can't remember, maybe someone else did, was that Pathfinder really is, especially for new gamers, it's too complicated to hold people's attention. And you should definitely try something that is simpler and that just supports role play from the beginning to get them interested in it, because it can happen that over time, if someone really sticks with a system like that, and they really know the mechanics by the back of their hand, maybe then that creative energy will be freed up for them to really get that cool experience out of it. But why would you put a roadblock in front of that in the beginning? That's not a criticism of Nate, but I'm just talking more in general. Like, if you're trying to get people interested in the hobby, why put these obstacles in front of the fun at the very beginning? Let people have the fun immediately, and then if you want to try something that's more complicated to see if that's to your taste, then try that once they actually know what a role-playing game can do for them, in terms of a medium of entertainment.
Well, the interesting thing there is it's only more complicated in terms of its mechanical interface. It's actually, in terms of the role-playing it supports and purports and teaches, it's vastly more simplistic. The problem is role-playing is an incredibly easy thing. The actual aspect of role-playing, you can easily teach that to a child. That's
what you do when you're playing Cowboys and Indians or Cops and Robbers, whatever it is. Like the most basic levels, you're playing pretend of some kind. That is role-playing, and it obviously can get a lot deeper than that as time goes on, as people get older and more mature. I mean, that was my experience when I first started trying to do these things. I was doing super, super simplistic stuff, I was drawing on graph paper and all that shit for dungeons and whatnot. But over time, I stuck with it, but that's just kind of my personality. I could see the potential for it. I just didn't know really how to get there at first. Now we have so many good indie games out there. It's amazing, and the internet, makes it so much easier to find the really, really good products. You're not faced with going to a game shop and having these tomes of tables and dice rolls and statistics. If I was a gamer, if that was my first exposure to it, if I hadn't had my older brothers playing and me listening in on their sessions when I wasn't supposed to, I never would have been able to get past that. I would have opened one of those books and gone, well, this looks like how I have to do math. I don't just like I said, I don't like working out for entertainment. Yeah. I don't like doing math for entertainment, and that would just completely turn me off. So, I mean, something simple and I'm not trying to this isn't just shameless promotion for Within the Ring of Fire, but Within the Ring of Fire, I mean, it really is built from the outset. The first chapter is about using your fucking imagination. The whole thing. And everything that you wrote in that game, my favorite line in the entire book is about how you determine your starting equipment. And you talk about how you don't need to even start with weapons. You don't even need to think about that. It's like, think about who your character is, and do you have a sword? Do you even have a sword? Your character might have been a soldier, and you might have had to sell your sword to pay your debts or whatever. And what you're starting with Instead of starting with a sword, you're starting with something much, much better, which is a story about why you don't have a sword. Like that is so much cooler to me than you know, okay, well, you have 150 gold to spend. These are what you can afford at the outset. It's like, fuck that. I hate that shit. If you're not telling someone like how to tell stories and inspiring them to tell stories with the material, talking about the rules, you've failed. You have absolutely failed, and you're turning off a huge potential audience for your game and for gaming in general.
Yeah, and I think that's really what I wanted to target, a fantasy genre, because typically your games are focused on role playing. Modern, you know, vampire and mage, something like that, you know, it really focuses on the role playing, on bringing that role playing, not to the degree raw immersive games do, but it still really focuses on that. You had this, and I remember when they first came out, when they first hit the game stores, you know, 91, 92, these games start coming out, people start playing them. Those same people who are horrendous role players, and even, you know, when I was like 15, I could spot, you know, horrendous role players, and I would see them go from like a 1 to like a 3 just by switching games, because they're less focused on the combat. They're more focused on realizing, they're looking at that experience chart and going, well, fuck, there's nothing on here for combat, but there's a whole bunch of things on here for role playing. So they knew to be rewarded, they had to dip down. And there is, you know, a tremendous difference when you add, you know, you take someone that's just sorry as it could be to being, you know, just bad. If you know, going from pitiful to bad is a huge improvement. You know, if I get to choose, I want the bad player all day long. And with you know, with these games, like you're saying, it's so hard to learn them. There seems to be no reason really for anyone to play those versus playing a game that has a cinematic aspect and a more simplistic yet as comprehensive. There's, if we say Within the Ring of Fire, I could teach you Within the Ring of Fire in 5 minutes, 8 if you don't pick things up that quickly. You cannot teach someone Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder systems to that level. And I would actually argue that Within the Ring of Fire's air engine is more comprehensive. You can cover more with the engine that's put together than you can with the D20 system. So you produce a simpler system with a result that doesn't it's easier to learn. It's more comprehensive. It's definitely more tied into descriptions, to narratives, to role playing. And then with your other games, it seems what you get is the opportunity to spend a lot of money on things that are going to make your game actually worse. And they're going to atrophy your imagination. Say if you're struggling and you're not getting to that level where you're really producing that quality product in terms of your game at the table, maybe, you know, you're starting and you're not very creative and you don't have people to teach you, and you start building with these sort of things, you're not going to get better because you're not going to make those mistakes that you go, aha, that's how I shouldn't have done it. That's how I shouldn't. And you keep learning from those mistakes. And then eventually you see how you should do it. You see what you need to do, and you begin to produce an excellent quality of game. So when you're not able to produce that excellent quality of game because you haven't trained yourself, you've relied on crutches. It's like you're trying to run, you know, Olympic speed, but you're sitting there all the time pushing around with a crutch. You're not ever going to make it there because you're not training yourself to become what you can as a game master. For me, and tell me what you think about this, Matt. To me, it just seems that people will buy that mainstream game based solely off the fact that they heard that and associated that with role playing. Then they get involved with it, and then they start learning those rules, and they go, "Fuck it, I don't want to learn more rules. It was utterly exhausting learning these rules. I'm done. I'm playing this game. It's good enough." And that's where I am. So it's that name recognition that brings the people in. It's the huge money sink that those mainstream games are that keeps them from exploring other gaming options, and then, you know, it continues to perpetuate itself. Not of its ability, not of its creativity, not of anything it in of itself brings to the table that surpasses other types of games, but just in the fact of that name recognition, of that branding, of that advertising. That seems to me perhaps the sole reason that a game like that would be, you know, would be elevated. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree, and a certain amount of that is not something that you can overcome, and it's not necessarily just due to, like, you know, like just like pure corporate greed or anything. It's just that D&D has been around longer than anything. You know, it's the game, and it has had such a following. It inspired so many other games. But you know, starting from an indie gaming standpoint, it's difficult if people don't know about your stuff, and if all they have ever heard about is these big complicated games, that absolutely can turn them off. And I totally agree that, you know, if you spent a shitload of time invested in learning one system, and someone's like, hey, you want to do the same thing, but you have to learn all this different shit. Like, yeah, that's a huge thing to overcome. It's like, people are not going to want to do that. They absolutely aren't going to. And that's why I really like these games with simple rule systems that you can pick up and play within, you know, you can make a character and start playing within an hour. You know, like that is, I think, the best way to get the most out of people. And that's the thing, is like, I want to play with people and really have their imagination soar. That's the coolest part of all this. And it's tough to do, you know, if they perceive playing role-playing games as work, you know, as having to learn how to play this is going to be work, they're not going to want to do it. And that's the same with board games. You know, there's some very, very complicated board games that I get a lot of enjoyment out of. Like there's a Game of Thrones board game that is awesome, but learning to play that game, if you don't have people who have already played and can guide you through it, I would never want to pick that game up. I would never have ever wanted to play that. Just looking at it, it's just like, this looks hard. Like, it looks hard to play, not hard to win, hard to play.
Another thing I was going to talk about, because I actually did a label review of Pathfinder, and maybe I'll change the name. I don't know exactly what it is. But one thing in Dungeons and Dragons that I think is a horrible idea are character classes. Yeah,
I hate that. I hate character classes.
And as soon as you hit 3rd edition, they were completely obsolete. There was no reason to have included character classes because you have feats. You kind of had some things that were like in the mire of proto-forming of feats in 2nd edition, particularly in like 2.5 when you start getting weird fighter handbook, or maybe even that was even in the end of 2nd. Yeah, I think that would have been more into 2nd, but there's basically a couple feats you can spend weapon proficiency or non-weapon proficiency on to get in D&D. But once you have that stream of feats for your character, that's just make a character. Like in Within a Ring of Fire, you have advantages that will replicate every single one of those. Because I went through it, I went, well, let me make sure I get those, because that'd be the first thing, you know, people go, oh, why can't I Barbarian Rage or whatever? So I said, all right, well, you want to include those sort of things. You can have those archetypes. But the class, and particularly in Pathfinder, it's a clear money grub, so they can get more books made. So you make a book and you make alternate class features. Well, the Ring of Fire have advantages. So you just write everything down. I don't want to have to wait to get 3 levels of Swashbuckler to get this fucking feat, and then I got to play a Paladin or class ability. Play a Paladin to get this class ability or that class ability, or now I got to play some levels of Ranger. Now I got to get this prestige class. Just throw all the fucking stuff out there, give it a point cost value, and let the people pick up what they want. You know, and maybe you might want to give it some kind of requisite so they can't get it right at the start of the game. But other than that, just give people the ability to mold what they need. And you'll find you can do that without that much game space in the book being taken up versus an entire 2-page write-up for an alternate class feature. Which, I mean, I was like, God, man, they're working people right here. I mean, there's no reason to have that alternate class feature. That's a ridiculous idea. So I don't know. What do you think about classes in general and about alternate class features? Because that's
I really
point to people in Pathfinder.
Yeah, I seriously dislike the idea of having a class. I really only like being able to create the character that I want to make, because it puts you, at least I feel, it puts you in such a constrictive box when you do that. Like I want to be able to play a character sometimes who can, you know, who is a very proficient fighter and warrior, who may also be extraordinarily intelligent and, you know, and be able to follow, you know, the esoteric paths of magic and be really deeply engaged in those things. And I don't want, You know, if my character, you know, if I don't sit there and upgrade my combat abilities with my experience, if my character genuinely becomes interested in the mystical arts, I want to be able to follow that and maybe pursue that and gain those abilities as a point in the story. And if you're restricted by, if you've been put in this box and you can't follow those things, then that's really irritating to me. And I mean, even within things like Exalted and the World of Darkness games, I think they handle that. People have tried to argue to me that the clans in Vampire are classes, which is complete horseshit. They're not classes. They're a story, and they're basically a familial relationship that you have. If you want to, you know, play. Well, I mean, my thing is I'm obsessed with playing against type. I love playing against type. And it can be very, very difficult to do that with classes. And you're right, having alternate class features and all this shit, it's like that's horrendously annoying to me. I should be able to play, you know, a paladin or whatever and follow, you know, I don't know where I was going there. I should be able to play a paladin, you know, and be able to, you know, maybe lose my faith or change to my faith in a different god. But oh, you're not playing a dark paladin or whatever. You know, you can't get this specific power. I absolutely hate that shit. Yeah. If the story merits me gaining an ability or following a certain path and upgrading my skills or my abilities, I should be able to do so as long as it is justified within the story.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, that should be the real justifier. We talked about that earlier with people that, oh, well, yeah, I should get these skills for free because obviously my skill points have already been dedicated out forever to, you know, perception, stealth, and, you know, whatever, you know, and these same people, you sure as hell know they didn't buy any skill. Like, and it's one of the big knocks on D&D and Pathfinder, you know, the what do they call them? Psycho hobos. Because your character has no usable skills. It's like you didn't grow up in the world. Like you came out of some weird fucking player character adventurer test tube, and then you got to go around and start murdering everyone. Because why wouldn't you? You don't know how to. You can't earn a living. Your character cannot earn a living. He doesn't have any sort of skills.
Well, that's the other thing is that people change careers all the time in their fucking lives. You know, like my character may start off being some badass, you know, sellsword. You know, I'm out there, I'm a mercenary doing all this shit. And then at some point, I might have a crisis of faith. And I might want to dedicate myself towards, you know, following a god and serving that in that god's clergy. And I may still have all of these skills and these abilities that allow me to be a badass warrior and all this shit. But why can't I then also begin learning the teachings of a divine of some divine creator and serving them and you know, learning their religious rituals and dedicating my time towards that if I wanted to. Like, I don't want to be stuck don't put me in a box, man. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And what I want to talk to something similar to class, but different. What are your feelings on alignment in D&D and all that shit?
People often ask me, you know, well after, like, oh, what alignment did you pay for your character? I said, oh, I didn't bother.
I hate alignment.
It's a role-playing restrictor. It's like, you can't do that because you're counting good. It's like, well, that's what my character would be. No, dude, that's my character. Let me just role-play. I don't need an incredibly... What alignment was an insanely bad description of how to role-play your character. That's basically what it turned off to be.
Really, really bad. And I hate that they also tied it to the mechanics in so many instances. Like that bothers me so much because I also like to play characters that sit in these kind of morally gray areas. You know, you can't describe them simply as being good or evil. It's that people have motivations, and that's it. People have motivations, and nobody thinks. I mean, some people think they're the bad guy. Some people get off on being the bad guy, but you know, the best villains in movies, even in like big dumb action movies like Die Hard, one of my favorites. Yeah. You know, whatever his name is, Hans or, you know, whatever, Alan Rickman, he plays the bad guy. If you listen to him talk about playing that character, he never played that character as if he were the bad guy, if he were the villain. He had a goal. He had an objective that he wanted to accomplish, and he made some compromises and went about it in a way that most people would describe as evil, but he was the hero of that movie from his perspective. He was trying to be the hero in that movie. And if you like, there's an association with the good alignments as being heroic and the bad alignments as being villainous. And I really, really don't like that. Another example, have you seen the new Daredevil show on Netflix?
No, I hadn't watched that.
It's really good. You should definitely check it out. But the bad guy is the villain Kingpin. But that character, again, like he clearly does some very nasty things in that. But his goals that he has, his stated goals and what he actually believes in is a positive thing. And he wants to create this positive future. But the way he's doing it is something that would be completely incompatible with any of the alignments in D&D. It's not something you could not put him into a box as being, even lawful evil or neutral evil. He wouldn't fit in any of those. He's certainly not chaotic evil, but he also wouldn't fit in chaotic or neutral or lawful good. Everybody straddles these lines. Real people, interesting people and interesting characters cannot be summed up with something like that. And I know there's going to be a lot of people, oh, it's just a guideline, blah, 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 blah. Then why the fuck is it in the mechanics? Why is it in the rules? That's horseshit.
Well, here's the thing with alignment. There's nothing, even the Edition Wars, that's caused more fucking enormous arguments than alignment. Even on the videos here in the YouTube community where we really don't have much in terms of strife, I mean, people get furious. How could you say that Dexter is this alignment, he's this alignment? Oh, you stupid, just ridiculous comments. It's like,
well, that's the other thing. If it is too difficult to post any of these very interesting characters, like Dexter's an awesome character that I love,
sure.
If you are going to have like wars over which alignment he is, then that is a useless feature. Like, it is a feature that describes nothing. If he's not going to fit into any of those, it's not describing something useful. So why have it?
Yeah. I would still have to contend Dexter's probably chaotic evil. But of course, that being said, it's like, wow, his chaotic evil was completely fucking playable. And that was one of the really weird alignments. You can't play chaotic evil. No, you can't play a lot of chaotic evil characters. You cannot make the Joker and come into a D&D party. Yeah, I'll take what? But you can play, Nathan Explosion dressed up as a fucking priest of Talus. He'll do just fine. It's not gonna smash her head in it, but just look at you like derisively and then go to the food library. So it's kind of a different deal. It's about making something that has a story that you can get sympathy on. That's how they should write it. It's like, and that's what to do with the Ring of Fire. Get sympathy on your character. You're not the antagonist. You're the protagonist. Yes, you can do horrendous things. I mean, hell, just the dietary requirements alone, we see lots of horrendous things. Those are there. I mean, the common man myth of ogre, baby, because ogres that's your default character for most songs within the Ring of Fire. It's like, yeah, you can play an ogre too, but they will eat people. They'll even eat each other. That would.
Well, that's also something that I particularly like within the Ring of Fire. I think I've talked about this before too on different videos, but the divinities in your book, aside from maybe Ozzy Dahaka, who's like just pure evil. All of the divinities that you would consider like the bad guys have really complicated motivations, and you can't just put them in a box as being like, well, this is an evil guy. Like, he who has many names, super messed up, trapping people's souls in hell and all this stuff. But if you read about why he's doing that, it's actually a very lofty goal that he has. You can't just put it in a box. There's no absolute good or absolute evil in anything. And I hate when people try to do that. Like, that's something that is actually kind of something that's filtered into video games, these role-playing games, where you have the option to make these choices. You can be the good guy or the bad guy, which always ends up being stupid. It always ends up being you are either Jesus fucking Christ or you're Adolf Hitler.
Christ, the good guy or the bad guy?
Well, that's up for you. That's up for debate here. But okay, you're either, I'm trying to think of someone who would agree is a good person. All right, you're either like this paragon of virtue. You know, you're Sir Galahad the White, or you're goddamn the Adolf Hitler of space. You know, like you, there's like no in between.
Semester into this.
There's one exception to that, and that is the game, the Witcher games. They offer choices and they all have consequences, but there's no clear good or evil in it. Like each choice has a perspective on it, which is awesome. I love seeing that filtering into games finally. But I really hate black and white moral systems, and that's something that Vampire, I think, actually suffered from a lot for a long time with the humanity system. Was that you were either just a cold-blooded, evil, mass-murdering asshole, or you were a pious little saint. And it's like there's so much gray in between that that humanity system did not cover. The new humanity system in Vampire the Requiem, I think, actually does a very good job of that because it's different. But
I thought humanity was an utterly useless trait, because what they're basically trying to say is, all right, look, you're a monster, right? But you don't want to do things like, and some of the things were just unimportant, like killing people. That's bad. No, dude, I don't care about that. After you've been a vampire, probably for 3 months. After 3 months, drinking someone exsanguinated means nothing to you. It would infect you in absolutely no way. It wouldn't be years or anything like that. Like, a human mind has the capacity to accept shit really fast. Like the first week, it might be an issue. After that, it starts with a rapid slide down to not mattering at all to you.
Yeah, and the other thing is, that's how you gain your fucking sustenance. That's how you survive. People have a very way of rationalizing that, and that's actually something that they did change humanity in the new edition. That I really think is pretty cool. Is that it's not so much like how mean or how nice you are. It's how well you identify and empathize with humanity. And that's about it. The lower levels that you go into humanity, you are literally becoming something totally detached and different than being a human. And the way I kind of see it, there's this awesome movie called Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson it's fucking brilliant, where she plays like a space alien, basically, that comes down to Earth and is luring men into this otherworldly lair, like seducing them and then killing them. For some reason. It's never explained. It's not really important, though. But there is this really, really horrific scene in the movie where she's on this beach and she's watching this disaster happen, where this family, their dog has been carried out by the tide, and this woman is trying to swim out to save it, but she's getting carried out by the tide as well. And so the father goes in, same thing's happening to him. There's just this baby sitting on the shore, and she just watches them die. Like, totally cold and detached. And that, to me, that's a low humanity vampire. Someone who just sees that and just, can just observe and not give a single fuck, or just look at it with a mindset that a human being can't understand. That to me is a low humanity vampire, instead of someone who's just like running around, ripping people's heads off in the street and that sort of shit. Although that can be fun. I will admit that can be fun.
Definitely. You really kind of come across these really sort of, I guess you would call them pre-emo vampires, because it's running around like in 1991 too. These things are like, oh, I have so much angst, and
I hate that.
And that was like so predominant. And I'm not going to go into a big long deal on that. And if you guys can listen to interviews I did with Phil Mercado and with Mark Reinhagen, and you can kind of get into seeing why those things are like that, and the type of people that they were hiring, doing different writing, so how that kind of came across. And I don't think, I personally didn't like that. I don't think it's a problem to have that as like a minor aspect, but it was pushed way too much to the forefront, where you have characters that are kind of like, where you have I don't know. I think a lot of the characters became too feminized in a lot of aspects to them, which is fine to have, but I don't think you want to have that as your predominant default position, particularly when you have a masculine vampire. I think that is damaging, and I think like I said, you kind of come off and being a little bit too much like a Twilight style vampire, which while that stuff did get over and made a lot of money, it's not going to draw you or me to a table. We're not going to be interested in playing that.
That's why I always played the Sabbat. Anyway, I thought the Sabbat was by far the more interesting faction than the Camarilla, and that's where a lot of those players were actually drawn to. There was a guy I knew in high school. He was a terrible role player.
Yeah.
This will tell you how this no no it was Matt no but we were talking about we're going to play this Sabbat game and everything, and he was like, no, this is how fundamentally he also misunderstood Vampire. So he's like, I want to play the Camarilla, and we're like, why? And he goes, because I want to play the good guys. I was like, you don't get this. The Camarilla may be may have more of the type of player you were talking about, but the Camarilla, as written, not good guys. Not good guys at all. They're still bloodthirsty fucking monsters who are manipulating humanity in awful, terrible, terrible ways. And on top of that, they're covering up the fucking truth about, the apocalypse happening. Like,
I really didn't I didn't like the Sabbat that much, and I'll tell you part of my main reason. And yeah, they have some really kind of hand-waved attempted excuses at this, but when you come down to the core of a Sabbat game, the Sabbat are they're not that believable, because the Camarilla have a Masquerade, right? But the Sabbat are running around doing all these ridiculous things. You're just going to get caught. There's a reason.
Well, that's the thing that is a valid criticism, because the whole thing is that they say fuck the Masquerade until the hunters and the police are banging down your door trying to burn you alive and stake you. Like the Masquerade was self-enforcing.
I got two words. Caphias Smith.
I'm not familiar with that character.
Book, one of the first supplements for Vampire, the first humans book. Caphias Smith is a hunter with like fucking 8 humanity, and he's apparently also a ghoul. No, not 8 humanity, 8 faith.
God, yeah.
Goes to any vampire that isn't named Cain, gone.
Yeah, you're fucked. There's, I don't know. I liked the Sabbat partially because they were the underdogs, but also just like I love that they had a fundamentally different philosophy than the Camarilla, and they were right about the fucking apocalypse coming. They were right about Gehenna. You know, they weren't pussyfooting around this shit. They knew what was happening. They were preparing to fight it, while the rest of these idiots were, like sitting around and saying, no, that's just an old wives' tale. My young child, all that shit. Like, they were terrible. I'm Sabbat for life. That's basically.
The other issue with the Sabbat though is they clearly, from anyone that looks at them for a second, you can very clearly see that Sabbat suffer from leftovers. They have the wrong clans are.
Yes. Oh yeah.
The Sombra are very clearly a Camarilla clan. The Sombra Tremere are very, very fucking clearly a Sabbat clan. There is no clan that more screams, "Hey, we're founded by Rising. Other people's found. We were created from humanity blood, and then we ate Salat. Let us in the Camarilla."
We literally killed an antediluvian and ate their soul, and now we're vampires. Yeah.
The La Sombra are like the fucking Venture. They fucking both vote Republican. Republicans are not in the Sabbat. Okay, get the fucking weird, crazy Tremere in there. Get the fucking anarchist Bruja in there. Those are their two clans. Jemase Scream are an independent clan. Plus, they have vicissitude, which is, let's face it, it's really, really fucking cool, but it's also stupid as fuck. Like, it makes zero sense. Like, it was
not at all.
it's just a really, really bad idea. It's just really cool. It's like a really cheesy horror movie that you just fucking love. That's what vicissitude
That's precisely the truth.
And I mean, to me, I scream.
When I was in the Sabbat, I never played a La Sombra. I never played a Zamisi. I always played, one of the anti-tribute. And it really always bothered me too that it was like you had such a restricted clan network because of that. So annoying.
Yeah, I mean,
but I did play a Nosferatu, and the Nosferatu are the best clan ever. So
Nosferatu are good. I played with Nosferatu one time. I really like Malkavians. I played a lot of Malkavians. They might be my favorite clan. The
Malkavians are great as a clan, but they're usually horrible in play. But that's because terrible players tend to
they have that terrible player syndrome that White Wolf clearly fucking supported. Look at
Oh, I know.
OKB and clan books. Look at both of them. You know.
I know.
So, and they go, "Hey, we don't support that." I'm like, wait a minute, what's this book even over here in the bunny slippers? Okay, yeah. You guys aren't doing. But then again, you know, another issue there is, the clan books and shit. I know the whole story behind that, and you can watch my interviews with Phil Mercado and Mark Reinhagen for more information on those. But let's just say they didn't have the best talent pool to draw from to produce that content.
Yeah.
Nor were they paying very much for them.
I will say, again, I'm gonna plug the New World of Darkness, man. The new clan books are fucking awesome. They're like zero statistics, and they are like, for the New World of Darkness clans, they are just pure role-playing inspiration and badass, sick, scary shit in there. They are awesome.
Yeah, most of the first edition clan, tradition, and tribe books were just really, really, really bad. I read a good percentage of them. They were really bad. Not Ratkin bad. The Ratkin book is the worst book written for Old World of Darkness. It is a drizzling piece of shit, and whoever wrote that, I want to say it was Comrade Hubbard, but I might be wrong on that, so I'm not going to say that. But it was abominably bad, and I'm not talking about the fact that they made Ratkin way too powerful. I'm talking about just the actual writing of the book. As a writer, I was embarrassed that I read it. You know, it seemed like it was written by like fourth graders. You know, constant references to mice and men, flowers for Algernon, and just like that was clever. It's like, that's not clever. Anyone who has a 9th grade education has read these books. You know,
or at least the clip notes.
I don't know. I mean, I certainly read both of them in 9th grade or before 9th grade. I can't remember when they came along, but both good books. But yeah, I don't know about that. I guess we should talk a little more jank gag on Pathfinder a little bit.
Let's get back to that.
Yeah, because we're making a really long video here. But fuck it, a whole bunch of you are still out there watching. Your main man and Matt Pritchard delivered the Devastation Incorporated on your ass like we was managed by Skandar Akbar. Yeah, that's right. Thumbs up if you even know what I'm talking about. So yeah, for me, I think that was really a bad point. You know, when they're bringing up people, they try to like justify Pathfinder and they cleared the rules up and this and that, but to me, they made the game more needlessly complicated in a lot of ways, and they built off. They didn't change any of the actual problems. D&D has an enormous amount of real problems mechanically, and they didn't address any of those. They simply, I don't know. Some people said, "Well, they made grappling better." The grappling rules in D&D were written by people who don't know how to fight. I would bet fucking money the third edition D&D grappling rules were not. Those people have not been in a real street fight. I will bet you fucking money on that. You know, me personally, I got like a 20-year background on grappling, competitive grappling. You know, from many different styles. I understand how it works, and it's very easy to render correctly in a game. And their rules are just fucking dizzying. But I remember reading them for the first time when third came out, and then rereading them in 3.5, and I'm like, A, these are wrong. B, they're horribly written. C, they're incredibly complicated. You know, and I didn't see Pathfinder. I mean, again, it looked like the same thing. It's like, okay, you're writing about something you don't know anything about, and that seemed very apparent to me. So I don't know, but I didn't see any usable upgrades and rules. It just seemed like a collection of fairly mediocre. I'm not going to say bad. I'll say fairly mediocre house rules that were added. Everything seemed obvious. Yes, you needed to do more with sorcerers. Yes, maybe you wanted to clarify brawling. They didn't do it in the way that it should have been done, and particularly grappling. But yeah, another thing towards what you're saying earlier, you know, you got that whole lawful thing on monks, which makes fucking sense. Like every MMA fighter is a monk. All of them have monk classes, every single one of them, and I can guarantee you there are tons of them that are not lawfully aligned. You know,
well, well, I mean, about real world examples of monks. And I know that monks are in RPGs are typically thought of as, you know, kung fu masters and things like that. You know, real monks have always had pretty much no concern with the law of man. of anything. They have always been concerned with the divine, whether it's Buddhists or or Christian monks like Franciscans and Benedictines, everything like that. They're dedicated to whatever divine path they're following.
Yeah, but a Christian monk is not what a monk is, though.
I know. That's what I was saying. That's why I was saying that the monks in D&D and Pathfinder and RPGs are typically thought of as kind of like an Eastern, kung fu badass, which, by the way, is not representative of real of monks anyway, except for a very select few. But even them, like, they're not concerned with law and acting within the law. They're concerned with following their path to enlightenment or God or whatever it is. They're like, functionally, a monk should be more of a cleric, in my opinion.
Well, monks seem to come from the fact that I guess Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax like kung fu movies. They make no sense at all in a D&D setting. They create lots of problems, particularly when there was I've heard it called like the Bill of Rights for players, which is the worst goddamn thing I've ever heard. And it did a lot in third edition, where you are granted you can play the monk, you can do this. The game master doesn't have a say. You get to, all this stuff is available to you, and all these rules you can use indisputably and so forth, which I find it really kind of creates a bit of a problem. And while they do say, you can change this or that, the player can feel entitled to something, and when you pull that away from them, then they're like, oh, why can't I do this? The book says I can do this and so forth. So I found that to be a bit of an issue with the third edition system. The other thing you brought up there, talking about earlier about Within Ring of Fire, because we use an opulent system, which I mean, you hear just from the word opulence, it already stomps the D&D system. One of the things I hate, though, again, Pathfinder does this. You have it's accounting, and you have to do so much goddamn accounting through the game, particularly if you want to make your character anyway mercantile, and that it can be maddening. The D&D system cannot handle an actual real merchant. I'm not talking about you just bought a keg of apples and you're going to sell them, but if you're trying to operate a real mercantile industry with the exact keeping track of copper pieces and so forth, it'll be incredibly, it'll be a job as you're both player and game master. You'll be working a job to keep that up. Me, I will not use any kind of exacting thing to come in. I'm not going to sit there and buy my studded leather armor, and I'm not going to sit there and buy my short sword and shield or whatever. And I'll tell Game Master, I said, look, can I have this stuff? Will this be fine? And any Game Master that says, that tries to take that hard line with me, I'll say, all right, look, okay, so I'm just going to start with 150 gold in my hand. I'm going to take the gold and throw it on the bushes, and I'm going to walk off. I'm going to be buck naked, and I'm starting buck naked with nothing. I'm going to describe what's around. There's a rock. I picked a rock up. I now have a rock, To me, I mean, it's just, it's agony spending money to buy, all these exact specifics, as opposed to just fucking be reasonable, man,
Yeah. I hate anytime that I feel like I'm playing spreadsheets, the game. Like, I don't want to play Excel as my role-playing game. Like, I hate that. I hate bean counting. I hate all that shit. So I definitely like simplified resources mechanics. That shit is so annoying.
And here's the other thing with resource mechanics. You can actually do more with resource mechanics than you can with an exacting amount of coins. Like, for example, trying to make a merchant-type character, which is a wonderful character to play,
mm-hmm.
and a character it certainly has already been realized within the Ring of Fire, you almost can't play it not using those rules because, all right, we have to take out taxes here. We got to take out trade routes, and then this caravan was attacked, and something happened to it. You lost it, so we're gonna have to subtract this, and then the goods, and then the driver, and then this, and now you have this issue. Instead of just presenting, okay, you get your caravan was attacked, you've lost these things, you drop a point of opulence, you have to deal with this guy's widow and his kids. Do you just hurl them into the muck, or do you help them in some kind of way, and you can start working right there because you get plot hooks and you can start working them. And you can say, okay, all this stuff came in now, so you're making gains, and then just periodically, adjusting them up forward and giving them more hooks versus just this utterly exhausting aspect of coin keeping. I've seen player after player after player in a D&D game go, "Oh, I have this cool costume. I'm going to do this and this," and there's, they get ground out of it, because
that's actually something. My current character in German George's game, he like the way that I have my opulence rating is that it's not really all that high on my sheet, simply because most of my guy's capital is tied up right now in these operations that he's building, and that might hopefully someday see profits, but it's not like he doesn't just have coins to throw around to people, so it's much easier to just take it to a higher conceptual level of like, okay, you have a bunch of money that's tied up in these things and you can't touch it. You can't just, I'm going to take 10,000 gold pieces and go, blow it on hookers and swords at the blacksmith. You can't do that. It's much easier to just say, okay, this is tied up. This is generally what I can afford. That's much easier to deal with. And, and again, it's not putting that roadblock on the role playing. I don't want to play, if I want to play a businessman, I want to play the interesting parts of being a businessman. I don't want to play the shit where I have to hire accountants, to do that work for me. I don't want to, I don't want to deal with that. That's not the fun. No, like nobody wants to deal with, how many dollars does Indiana Jones have in his wallet at any moment? It's stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I hate kind of keeping track of any of that kind of stuff. The amount of arrows you have, all that stuff is just, it nauseates me, man. Like, I'll give you a great example. Watch any like Avengers cartoon or something. Hawkeye will do this joint. Like Hawkeye didn't know how many arrows he has at a time. He'll be lighting your ass up left and right with arrows. Like, yeah, Hawkeye, what's really good? I completely suck compared to the Hulk, but fuck that. And then he'll do this.
Yeah.
Oh, he has no arrows left. So just do that with your character every once in a while, You make a bad roll instead of like, oh, I just shot by him. I'm like, and you don't have an arrow. Then you're just kind of stunned for that moment. Then you recover, and next round you go in to do something else because your arrows are gone. Just don't. Here's the best key. Don't look at your character as my character. Look at it as a portion of the overall story. And feel free to jack your character sometimes. Feel free to put him over sometimes. And
that's the most fun too. Like have that, and that comes back to having something at stake. You have to have something that you want and that you want to fight for, or something that you don't want to lose. But it shouldn't be the character sheet in front of you.
Yeah,
it should be. It's more. Tie that up in the emotions of the game, and I guess like character death is something that I find a lot of people who play Pathfinder and those things, they're very averse to having their characters die. And it's not. You don't just want to, be suicidal with your character. Obviously, like we want to play them, but there are situations where death makes that story so much cooler and so much more fun. Like one of the first times my characters died was it was one of the best sessions I've ever played, ever. It was so fucking cool. And like, I remember, like, that is one of the sessions I remember from, 10, 15 years ago. It was insane.
Yeah, I can definitely go through, and I have some other videos here about good character death stories, and they could certainly add to it. It just all depends. If it's cool, then it's cool. That's the whole thing we're talking about before. You get to take all the cool stuff home. So you can take a character sheet home, but you can't take the character home. It's not you. You don't have all his cool stuff. But if whatever produces the cool story, is what you need to go with. Play the hot hand. And you could always make another one, unless maybe you really suck in the game. Or like, no, you can't make another one. You came in and set his house on fire. You smacked his wife in the mouth. Whatever. Maybe then you can't make another one. But from the most of the time, they're like, oh yeah, sure, make another character. Whatever, and it's fine. You can just get in and tell that story. It's not a big a deal. So yeah, for me, I don't really see. I don't really see any reason you can't do that. I've certainly done it in games here a few times. My characters have died in different games. They're a broadcast live, and it's it's no big deal. Yeah, but You definitely another issue, with D&D that drives me nuts is how repetitive a lot of people are with spells. Like, I don't have magic missile. I'm a sorcerer. I have the blood of dragons, and now magic missile.
Yeah.
Dragons will be casting magic missiles at people. What the fuck are you doing, man? No, fuck that. Magic missile. It's like, oh, all right then. I didn't know it was like that. But overall, I guess to wrap it up for the people, because we're God, this is gonna be a really long video. And I see there's a ton of you still watching, so thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And for those of you that don't like it, whatever. I'm not mad.
We don't care. We don't care.
We really don't care. Like, you could yell at us in the comments and stuff like that. That could be entertaining too. I've never got mad at somebody for hitting dislikes or getting mad at me. I think that's kind of funny.
Oh man, having enemies is awesome.
To quote William Murderface, that's being a dick. When you're mad, but I'm not mad. But no. I mean, none of this was done to really incite or upset anybody. Just to sort of get you thinking. I mean, you want to think, like, if someone legitimately challenges what you're saying, and you're like, "Oh, I play Pathfinder. This is great. This is my hobby." All right, well, maybe what we're telling you, maybe if you really look at it and try to, you're like, "Oh, now I see why they threw it on the ground and put boots to it." Oh, what you're talking about is a lot better. And that's because that's what we want. I mean, ultimately, it's a love for the hobby, trying to get people excited and interested in playing. Quite frankly, what we would define as a substantially better style of play that will produce more fun per hour. And that's what you want.
Absolutely.
So, and on another note, God, I hate fucking watching videos when people put them out and they have like straight shit play, and it's like, this is our D&D live game. I'm like, oh, because I know people are gonna watch that. It's the first thing they've ever seen for D&D, and it's just tremendously terrible. I remember there was this one video. It's way like it was probably the first one ever put up on YouTube. I think I just started my channel when I saw it, and it had like over 50,000 views then. And that was back when RPG videos struggled to get views. Now it's a lot easier, but that was a lot. So it wasn't that hard to find. It popped up in the gimmick, and I watched it, and it was horrible. I mean, it was fucking dreadful. I remember leaving them a note, please take this down. This makes our hobby look bad. And it was just terrible. So it's like, I don't understand why people are posting that. Like, if you don't know how to affect and make the hobby better, I don't know why you would post something that just makes us look like jabronis. And that's typically what your average person thinks. Is either you're some weird deviant, or you're some fucking goofy nerd and just talking out of character and saying, bring your character over here to help me and heal me. Like, I don't know how that's drawing any money for the hobby at all. So I don't know why anybody would put that up. And I remember there's one even worse than that. Dungeon Master Johnny has sent me. We're talking on fucking Facebook at some point. I don't know. I'm not even sure how long it was now, a year and a half ago maybe. But he was showing me that one, and it was even worse. Like, we watched it, and the whole thing, there was literally no role playing. There was none. There was zero amount of role playing in it, and it was like an hour and a half long.
God,
it was just like, bring your character over here. Oh, I'm down 7 points of damage. Yeah, I will guarantee you will not like what happens if you come out of character while I'm in a game and talk about how you're down 7 points of damage. You will not like what happens. Because I'm not gonna let that one go. I'm gonna clown you. So you learn a lesson, because that is it's just such metagame trash. But overall, like, in all seriousness, I would like to say that I think a lot of these corporate games, well, they can produce a game that's okay, they fall short of the line of really bringing in what is possible with a role-playing game, and often, particularly with the fantasy aspects, at the expense of trying to get you to game in a way that just causes you to buy more stuff.
Yeah,
that's what they want. To get all that money they can from you, and to actually give you a worse game. Like, it'd be one thing if you had to spend thousands of dollars, and I've seen people that have spent thousands of dollars on miniatures, to fucking tile cards, a battle map, all this shit, and I've seen the games they run, and I'm like, why does anyone even show up to play this? It's fucking horrible. And typically, then they'll, when I say something like that to them, they'll go, oh, well, yeah, I do have problems getting people to play. You know, they leave the game, or I don't know who's going to show up this week, if anybody will. New people come and they don't show back up, you know. And that happens a lot, man. But when you give them what they're hungry for, dude, they're there. They're definitely they're coming back. They're gonna make that a priority. You know, they're gonna make that their free time, and they're gonna get what they need to do. Make sure you go out there and subscribe to my buddy Matt's channel, T3H Sauce. You can find a lot more of his videos. And anything that you'd like to add on the way out, Matt?
No, not really. I mean, just play some good games, and like you're saying, give if you're the flame tender, the game master, whatever, you give your players what they want. You give them that awesome imagination, and you bring your game to them. They'll come back. They will absolutely come back. I mean, when I'm going full steam on games, people are like banging down my door to play, and that is exactly the kind of experience you want. Also, support my short film, Dearly Departed, on Seed and Spark.
Yeah, make sure you get your donations. You can even just send $1. You know, every little bit of money helps. You know, so you make sure you want to do that. Thank everybody out there for watching. Barbarian Horde, and leave us your comments. And you can hate, and you can hate. That's great. I don't give a fuck.
I would love to hear your hate.
Yeah,
I love hate.
But, you know, I mean, really, I mean, keep it in there, you know, because it's about – the whole thing is about trying to help somebody that's trapped in that doldrum of RPG. It's not about attacking you or trying to make you feel bad. It's trying to help you climb up the rungs to success, where you can look down like a golden chariot of God and burn them with 1,000 faces of flame.
I agree with that to an extent. Like, I want people to bring their game. If you're some trash player who, you know, you're saying everything that we've said is wrong, you should be playing with miniatures all the time. They increase your immersion. I want you to bring you down. You're terrible. I don't like you. That's it.
I'd like to find a real power gamer out there that actually has like an operation as a channel or something like that. If there is, I will challenge you to a debate, and I would love to decimate you debate style. If you're straight up about the power gaming, please do let me know. And sometimes I don't check all this stuff, so you might just want to drop me a line on Facebook and NWoD. But yeah, I need to find one of you guys because I need to debate a power gamer, and you better be good on your point because I'm playing to eviscerate your ass. That being said, thanks for watching. Make sure to support Within the Ring of Fire and the RPG Revolution. Have your imagination set ablaze. Visit drivethrurpg.com today. Get your physical copies of Within the Ring of Fire. Hit me up, NWoD, on Facebook. $75. You get every PDF that will ever come out for Within the Ring of Fire. First 5 already out. You also get some bonuses. You'll get your stuff first, too. Working on 3 more books at the moment. Support quality independent RPG games. Support those that love the hobby. Support the hobby you love. And join us on Raw Immersive Games, a Facebook forum, about 1,000 people strong. Matt's on there. A ton of people are on there. You can find games. You can find Google Plus games. We want you to get involved. We want you to play. We want you to have a great time. We want you to love the hobby. We want this to be the primary source of fun for you for many, many years. And you know, we love everybody that's trying to empower the spirit of immersion. And if you're just starting, if you've never played before, boom, it is the place to start. Then the Ring of Fire will lay out A to Z exactly what you need to do to learn how to role play. And it's a really, really easy deal. It's fucking 3 cardinal rules: show up, try, succeed. And it's not that hard of a deal to do. You can learn it the first time in. And for everybody out there supporting the Raw Immersive Games with it, Ring of Fire, the RPG Revolution, I love you. Love you all, Barbarian Horde. Thank you for watching our meandering rambling for some long parsecs of time, if you will. And you know about parsecs if you know what I'm talking about. So we're out of here, baby. And we will talk to you later.